Now, Christianity has its 13th apostle, a faithful witness to the love, mercy, and truth of Jesus Christ. How about you? Will you be the 13th apostle?
The Odyssey, not the Odyssey. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the 13th Apostle, where we explore the good, beautiful, and the true of the Catholic faith and the Catholic Church, and difficult questions revolving suffering of innocence. This is Tom Caffrey with my co-host Dan Duddy.
Hey, Tom.
Danny.
Good, buddy. How are you?
All right.
That's good.
So the Odyssey, it's this is the question of why does a good God allow not just suffering but innocent suffering? Odysseus on his Odyssey, that was 10 years. This has been going on from the beginning of human history, or probably close to it anyway. And we are going to talk about the greatest story that dives into this question in the book of Job. And it's interesting, the Old Testament is really known as the Hebrew Scriptures, because to them there's no New Testament. It's just their testament. And but there's no indication that Job was Jewish. And most biblical scholars say that the book of Job may not be historical, but it's like so many things that are, whether it's myth, legend, that they tell a truth. They're vehicles for truth, whether or not they actually happened. We learn morals to our stories, right? To go throughout whatever Grimm's fairy tales, the Arthurian, King Arthur legends and whatnot. Whether or not something's happened, they all carry morals. And the morals to the story. What's the moral to the story? And but anyway, it's interesting that although it's not in the Torah, the main books of for the Jews, it is in the Hebrew Scriptures. There's no indication that he was Jewish. But there were practices and traditions, and they're in that story. So I want to hear your take on it. You don't have to give me the whole, let's not give us the whole summary, but, is there anything initially that you want to say about the book of Job?
Yeah, sure. So I guess we can generally call ourselves New Testament people because, we have witnessed Christ through the Gospels, and we witness Christ through our prayer and through our personal relationship with Christ. Whereas in the nature of Job, as you just said, no sense in me in re-emphasizing that. But what I want to emphasize, and I think is hugely important, is the humanity, the humanness of Job and his story of wealth and health and family having been completely destroyed, which we can get into in a little bit, and how we here, in the New Testament can absolutely relate to tragedy, the very same humanness and tragic happenings that happened to Job. Maybe not the exact tragedies that happened to Job, because it was immense what happened, or depending how you want to look at that, what was taken from him by Satan himself when our Lord unleashed Satan to do what Satan made happen. But what's really cool is the fact that God is, omnipresent. He's in the present. So it's the same God, same truth, same humanity in Job thousands and thousands of years ago is the same humanity that lives with us today. So the story of Job is very, very inspiring and extremely relatable to us today in 2024. And I think that's really important. That's a great connector between old and new, and us who are walking with the living Christ in the New Testament.
Well, I think that taking this from what we would call the rabbinical standpoint, the rabbis, the scholars, it's really interesting. And you look at, again, we've talked about this many times, you look at the original languages, in this case, Hebrew for the most part. There's a lot more to it than what we often see just when we read it in English. And, so it's interesting. It's just like there's wrestling matches in here, and there's wrestling matches for us with this book. And it's mainly with the introduction, why would a good God allow innocent suffering? It's a reason why people don't come to faith, or they give up their faith when they become adults, or they're in adulthood and they come up to it. They'd have a terrible experience. I mean, we all have and will have a terrible experience, even if that terrible experience is just our eventual death.
What I did find interesting about Job, though, was in light of what you were just saying, he never cursed God, and it was a powerful loss. I mean, he had so much wealth and livestock that was destroyed when Satan visited God, and God said, "Go for it." Job's one of my.
But how do you square that though? Would you if you knew what someone was going to do to your son or daughter, would you allow that to happen short of death?
Are you talking to me, or are you talking regarding God the Father himself?
Well, I'm saying what God did. He had a wager with Satan. I mean, let's face it. He's having a bet with Satan, or as the Hebrews would say, Satan. And the Hebrews don't at all believe that, the Jews don't believe that Satan is not a noun, it's an adjective. Satan is, in some ways, they do say, the translation in the Hebrew is deceiver, is prosecutor, and there's a lot of writing about Satan. Actually, they say the Satan is has a respected position as, let's say, the chief prosecutor in the heavenly courts. And God is saying, okay, well, have you ever seen a man as upright as Job? And Satan is saying, well, wait a minute. He's got all this beauty. He's got all these blessings, if you want to call them that. He's got all this good. Well, of course he's going to be, holy or devout or whatnot. Take it away from him and see how he is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so it's like a game. It's a game with a wager.
Yeah, and I don't think we could ever come to comprehend God and his reasoning, his true reasoning, other than the fact that he's all love, and we've got to trust in that. And I'll never doubt why God would allow such things. But there's an immense beauty that came from this. First of all, God absolutely stands behind his son Job and says he's a really special guy. All right, and there's no one else like him. He's blameless and he's upright.
Yeah. So would you do that to your son?
So let me go on. So Satan says that he's only righteous because God's given him so much, and so God permits him to go and do what Satan does. And God knows that the reason his uprightness stands in the fact that he does not curse God. But God also knows, because he knows everything, that the main part of what's going to come with this is that, and this is the main part of the story, it's huge, is that his own wife, Job's own wife, told Job he should be cursing God. And he got upset with his own wife. No, I will not do that. And then his three friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, they came in and said, you must have done something absolutely horrible because God is laying this on you. And he still would not.
Well, hold on. I can tell you're a footballer because you can't wait to get to the end zone.
Well, it's important. It's an answer to your question.
No. Well, wait a second, though.
You're saying what kind of
no,
God
but hold on. So slow down about his friends. How did his friends know to show up?
He was in mourning for 7
but how
days.
did they know? There's no indication that they know.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you how they knew.
Right. So, and notice though that God didn't. Notice that God didn't take his wife, and God didn't take his friends, and the tradition, the lengthy tradition, is that God didn't take his wife, Job's wife, took him everything else pretty much, but not his wife, because the loss of a wife is like death. And remember, he said this. He said to Satan, "Don't kill him." So you do all this other stuff. You can't. So, but you didn't. But you didn't do anything about his. You didn't take his wife, because losing your wife is like death. And losing, you've got friends. Well, there's no indication. There's no mass communication back then. And so the point of that part is that close friends, true blue friends, loving friends, just know. They know when they have a sense that something's wrong with another friend. And so they show up. And in the Jewish tradition, they show up and they don't say anything. Because one of the worst things, as you well know, people, when there's a tragedy, a bad thing, certainly a loss of life, an unexpected loss of life, people show up and they say things. They mean well. But
it's reverence. The silence is reverence for the grief. Yeah.
It's reverence for the grief. It's reverence for that person, the person you love. And you can't say anything that's going to assuage that grief. Just let it happen. And that's what these friends do. And that's the Jewish tradition of Shiva, sitting Shiva. They show up, they're mourning, but they're not saying anything until that magical seventh day, that holy seventh day passes.
Okay.
And then, as you say, then they start on him.
Yeah, they break loose. Yep.
But how do there is a that expression, the Lord give, the Lord take, blessed be the name of the Lord. Mm-hmm. That's a difficulty for many people. What's the point of the Lord taking?
Mm-hmm. Well,
again, how does a good God, and you can't just say, I know what you're going to do, because you've already done it. Well, we can't know the mind of God. Well, but Job, that's not enough.
Job, that's what Job tells us. Job actually comes out and says, how can we truly satisfy the justice of God when he's so mysterious and he exceeds human comprehension? That's in the story of Job.
That's in the story, but that's not in the beginning. He's got to lay out his prosecutorial, why is this happening to me? Why are you doing this to me?
No, he cursed the day he was born. He never cursed God.
I didn't say he cursed God, but he doesn't know why this is happening to me. This is massive, unimaginable suffering.
Okay, but I thought you just said, how could you do this to me? I thought you just said that. That's why I responded the way I did, because that was not Job. There was a tremendous amount of humility in his cowering into a dark corner on earth saying, I can't take this. I curse the day.
But he is challenging God. He is challenging God in this narrative. And, we get to, he's cursing the day he was born. But, he wants to know, why would this happen? What else could I have done? And we can imagine ourselves in this situation. Well, I'm really trying to be a good guy. I followed your laws, your precepts, living properly, being a faith-filled guy. And look at what has happened to me. And obviously God allowed it, otherwise it wouldn't have happened. So, that's when you got the back and forth between the friends and Job. And, it's interesting. I'm not born knowing this stuff. When I'm born knowing this stuff, I learn these things and whatnot. And it's very interesting to say, eventually the three friends become two. And they're both saying, you must have done something.
Right.
You must have been, you must have sinned. Yeah. So you got to examine yourself. What did you do? And he's saying, no. I haven't done anything. And they're pushing back, saying, you must have. You know what it is? It's kind of like, and anybody out there in our audience who's been a caregiver to a loved one who's got a protracted problem, and the worst, of course, that we're probably the easiest to imagine is maybe Alzheimer's. It's very common. It's well known in the healthcare world that you start taking out your frustration, your impotence at not being able to help your loved one. That something there, you take it out on them, even though they're totally innocent. And it seems like that's what Job's friends are doing. And it's also what human nature is. that suffering is so terrible. I don't want to ever have to go through what my loved one is going through. So what did you do to bring this upon yourself? Because if you didn't do anything to bring this upon yourself, and it's random, or it could happen to anybody, that means it could happen to me. And that's terrifying.
Yeah, that's true. I agree.
But the three friends become two. And the suggestion is that the one friend couldn't take it anymore and left.
Mhm.
And now you have the two. So that's traditional morality in the Torah. If you live according to the law, you'll have a good life.
Mhm.
If you don't, you're going to have troubles. And that's what they're saying. His friends are saying.
Yeah, and I think that he was also accused by his friends that along these lines, like, hey, Job, you're out there helping people all the time in their pain, and now here you got this major infliction of pain and suffering. You must be full of soup. You know what I mean? You must not really know people's pain. You must be kind of like acting this out because here you are, getting hammered by God himself. But true, this did become very confusing to Job, and it did cause a lot of anxiety. True, and as we're moving through the story, that he did seek out God. He wanted to get answers from God, and he wants to know, how could this happen? Like, what's going on here? So he desires for, in prayer and so forth, someone to mediate, between himself and God, and to get some answers. And as you know, and I'll turn it over to you, God comes to him, right?
Yeah, and I mean, essentially, God tells Job, that he's right and your friends are wrong. And, you were an upright man. It wasn't that you did anything. Well, Job's asking, okay, essentially, why am I suffering? And in fact, Job refers to his friends in the Hebrew word as windbags. And I got a kick out of
you called me that once.
No, I'm sure it was more than once. We've been doing this.
I thought you were gonna deny it. You said I'm sure.
We've been doing this how many years? Especially when
windbags call other people windbags. Anyway, go ahead.
That's why I say you're biblical.
Oh, that's why all this time, man. I've been going to sleep with a smile on my face.
You are biblical.
All right.
And so he's saying that God, essentially what God gives him the grand tour of creation, of the cosmos, and some of the real specific things about about the cosmos, and it's how complex it is, right? And so I think that and we're cogs in the universe. We are cogs. And
absolutely.
I've read something that was fascinating about this. Learning this was amazing. And it was a rabbi who used a story analogy to try to explain that we're cogs in the universe. We're special, but every part of a machine, every cog in the wheel is special, plays a role, and so now we're in this cosmic play, and it began millennia ago, and will presumably continue for millennia.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a Shakespearean aspect to this. Imagine you're in a play. So somebody's complaining about their role. It's a bit role, a bit part. So imagine you're in a play, and the role is limited to you entering the stage, and then you slip on a banana peel. You break your leg, and that's it. They take you out. And you complain to the director, and the director says, there are thousands of lines, thousands of words in this play that preceded yours, and thousands will follow yours. And the ones that preceded led up to your part, and the ones that follow off your part. So if you make a change here, it could be a big ramification there. And a rabbi wrote that, imagine the sneeze happening in, I'm going to say New Jersey, and then there's a tsunami, in Asia, from the buildup of what's following that sneeze. And so the point is, that everybody has this role. We don't know why, because God doesn't answer Job. He never gives him an answer to his question. And we don't have a definitive answer to the question of why a good God allows. There's no shortage of responses over the ages, but there's no definitive answer in the book of Job. This is why I allowed this to happen to you.
But there is an answer between the lines when we're given, because we have this wonderful gift of imagination and discernment, that Job asked for forgiveness for his friends for their lousy advice. And that is what's most pleasing to God. Amidst all of this, amidst all of his anger and all of his suffering, Job still comes forward and asks for forgiveness for his friends, for their heresy, their lousy theology. And that really, really pleases God, to the point where he then restores tenfold, 100-fold Job's health, twice as much property, new children.
Okay, so Dan
Dan
has suddenly lost his remaining 7 children, but
and still finds a way to
6 months
to forgive others.
You get 24 children. So the point I'm making is that the new gain never replaces the old loss.
No.
And it doesn't replace that loss. The question is always, how do you interpret this experience? And I think the interpretation that I love the most about the book of Job and how it unfolds and how it ends is that Job's saying, if I'm righteous, then why do I suffer? The friends say that I must have done something wrong, and God says that they're wrong. Okay, so what? God doesn't answer. But God says, and this is the point of God. God is responding to Job. There's a difference between a response and an answer or a solution, but he is responding. And what he's saying is that I just want you to know that I'm here. I'm here with you. As you suffer, you won't understand. But I'm not here for an intellectual purpose. I'm not in here for an intellectual response so you can understand, but to give you compassion, hope, strength, love. I'm here to give you me. You were looking for an answer. I gave you me. You found me. You found God.
That's right. Yeah, we are subjected. We are the author of nothing, but we do have a will, and it's in Job's will, in spite of his immense suffering, that he still forgave his friends. He knows that he's the author of nothing, and it's he's
the author of that forgiveness.
Yeah, his own will, but he's not the author of life, and he's not the author of death. We're subjected to the generosity of God.
God makes the rain fall on the good and the bad, and the sun shine on the good and the evil.
Yep.
It's these are difficult questions, and they don't. This is not like a TV series or TV show where it wraps up in a nice, neat bow at the end. There's still wrestling matches.
Yeah.
Once you suffer, and you believe you're innocent in that suffering, you're looking for a response, or you're going to be quiet. You're going to shut your mouth. You're going to go through that desert, and you're going to, if you're looking for God, then you'll find God. You're not going to get the solution to the problem that you had in your mind, but you're going to find God.
Yeah, I'm just amazed at the truth, the presence of the truth across all time, across all chronology, and the human consistency of God's creation that we can relate to Job, and that God is in the present at all times, as is the truth. I think that in itself is a beautiful story of Job, among many other beauties within the story of Job. Yeah.
From the last thing we'll say, we're running out of time, is thinking about, again, another rabbi said, if we didn't have the Holocaust, we wouldn't have the state of Israel. That's not a reason. The state of Israel is not the reason to have a Holocaust. but you just never know what can come out, a good that can come out of a terrible, terrible experience and suffering. So we look for God to transform us, open ourselves to transformation, whatever difficulty we're going through.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Okay, brother. What we got coming up?
All right, stay tuned, folks, for the Angelus and your prayer intentions with Peter and Jimmy.
See, we just tied a nice neat bow on this, didn't we?
Yeah.
We didn't have the solution, but we had a nice
Till
neat
next
bow.
time. Yeah.
Always till next time.
Yeah.
All right. WQPH Radio. Thank you for your support. We look for your continued support. God bless you, Danny.
God bless you, Tom. God bless you, Tom. God bless you all, everyone. Till next time, God bless you all. See you, Tommy.
See you, Danny.
Thank you for listening to the 13th Apostle with Dan Duddy and Tom Caffrey. For more information on Dan, visit his website at www.danduddy.com or email dcduddy@gmail.com. Tom's website is faithpilgrims.com or email trcaffrey@faithpilgrims.com. How about you? Will you be the 13th Apostle?